All right, guys, this is episode 15, although my co-host, or I would say my field correspondent, Coach DeBellis, claims I'm making the numbers up as I go.
I didn't know where you were going with that. I was like, where's he going with this? Field correspondent.
I believe it's 15, and we have a special guest here, Nick Phillips. Nick graduated for us. Was it 14 or 15, or am I totally off?
It was 17.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it was same class as Sasso.
Sasso and Nadler and those guys. It's all starting to blend together for me. We actually had Sasso and Anthony together the other day, which was fun. But Nick was a great guy for us, great wrestler for us. He missed one season due to injury. Came a long way. Like Coach DeBellis said, he was a county finalist. He also was top 8 in the section his senior year, had a great run, super tough. Ended up losing to a kid that was a New York State finalist the next year in the Bud Round match, and it was a war. So, Nick has a different perspective maybe than some other guys. But, let's start, Nick, as I start all these interviews. And I kind of know the story a little bit, but it's good for the viewers to know how you kind of started wrestling.
Yeah, so I started either second or third grade. I don't remember much. I think my mom or dad was just like, hey, there's a youth wrestling program. Do you want to sign up for it? And I said, sure. And, I don't remember much from those days. I remember Doc Marino as one of the coaches, Sandy Buetti.
Yeah.
I'd usually wrestle with Andre Nesbitt, and then I'd always remember playing Bulldog at the end or something like that. Yeah. So those were good times.
That was the best.
Fun. Yep.
Yeah, you were one of the longest tenured wrestlers that we had from those days, because you started in second grade. I mean, Andre was there, Brock was there, Bronson was there.
Ferreras.
The Ferreras were there. I mean, this is Schreibers came in a little later, Aaron Walk. I mean, that's where it all started. We started with that youth program.
Yeah.
There's something about Nick that is interesting because no matter – and it was never a negative thing. He just was a big football player. He was doing other sports. So it was hard to get him into that off-season wrestling grind a little bit. But I was never mad at Nick Phillips.
Never.
My whole entire career was I ever mad at Nick Phillips. He is just that type of kid that is hard to not like. He just does that, right? But I'm just curious, Nick, and again, I might know some of this, but I was way more involved with you when you were in high school than you were in youth. Coach DeBellis was way more involved with you in youth. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how that was, like your youth experience kind of?
Youth. I sucked at wrestling. I didn't win a match. No joke. I did not win a match until 6th grade when I started modified. 4 years just getting my butt in every tournament. So
superior coaching.
Honestly, yeah. Credit to DeBellis for keeping me to stick with it after not winning a match. But yeah, no, I did always enjoy it, despite not winning. So yeah, it was very simple stuff, just like double eggs, single eggs, just very basics, but that really set it up for later in high school.
I love it. I love that because even in Matt Schreiber, Nick ended up being real good for us. His senior year, he was one of the guys we relied on, and, he had a good season. But, Matt ended up being a 2-time All-State wrestler. And Matt had a similar, youth experience in the beginning where he wasn't winning either. And I think that says something about Coach DeBellis and the youth program, keeping these guys engaged, because especially in a sport like wrestling, like it's not like a football game. Football's a tough sport, but you lose a football game, you might be on the sideline for some of it, you might be in it for some of it, it's different. Nick and Matt and these guys were getting beat up for a couple of years and they kept coming back, and that, to me, that says something about the program and Coach DeBellis.
Also, just for wrestling, it's like if you lose, it's on you. You're the only one out there, so it's different because you may play a great game but you still lose in football, but in wrestling it's just there's no excuses.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's awesome. And then you came to high school. I'm trying to remember, which year were you injured? Was it your junior year you were hurt?
Yeah, junior year.
9th and 10th grade, we kind of threw you to the wolves a little bit, if I remember.
Yeah. So 9th grade, that was with Billy and Brock, who were around my weight. So I spent that season just bouncing around, taking forfeits, because I was right on the edge of 195. So I could bump up to 285 to take the forfeit at easy match, go 220, go 195. So that season was a lot of bouncing around, taking forfeits, or just having to wrestle like occasionally like a real match. But, that was good, especially learning from Billy and Brock, because those guys were great, taught me a lot. Definitely made me a better wrestler that year.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had the best heavyweights in the section. There was no doubt.
For a couple of years.
Yeah, we had a run. Yep, we had a run.
Scotty.
Nicky was right. Yeah, Nicky,
Billy,
Scotty,
Nicky,
Billy,
Nick.
Brock,
By the time he was a senior,
Brent.
Nick and Nadler was the same size. Nadler
Yeah,
got
Nadler.
bigger. Yeah, we were good in those weights. So you made. We could talk about a lot of stuff, but you made a really big jump your senior year after being out for the whole season. Before. Do you remember how that kind of happened? Like, what happened there? Like, what helped you get to that level? I feel like it was.
Well, it was definitely tough missing a whole season because I thought I was starting to like come into my own sophomore year. I had like a pretty good record. I was wrestling a lot better, but then to miss that entire junior season was tough. But I was able to go to some off-season stuff. I went to those NC State camps at Empire Wrestling, which those were tough. I got my teeth knocked in a little bit, but definitely made me better. But I also think just being stronger by senior year, being stronger, more experienced, knowing what to expect. I think experience goes a long way in wrestling. So
You
I think
did a great job.
Muscle memory.
It was that 1-2 punch. Like you said with heavyweights, it was Nick and Nadler at that time, I believe, that were kind of going back and forth a little bit. Although Nick, you went 195 your senior year?
So that was.
Well, we'll talk about the Oswego
Yeah.
thing too, because I want to get into that because how tough you were that day. But what weight did you end up going for divisionals? I forgot.
Yeah, for divisionals, I went 195.
Okay, so a little backstory, and there's a lot of ways we could go with this. And for the people that are listening, we talked in, I think, Greg's interview, Greg Ironfranks, that we're not big pushers of cutting weight anymore, right?
Yeah.
Even when Nick was around, like I think it's more like back when I was in high school and Coach Bells was in high school, it was probably far more dangerous, and people cut crazy amounts of weight. I'm more of a pusher of if you can make this healthy, this should be the weight class you're at. And let's, a lot of times we're undersized, I feel like, because our guys are not disciplined in the fact of eating right and doing the right stuff.
Yeah.
But like late in the game, and Nick probably remembers the story better than me because there's so many different stories of different kids cutting weight and whatever. It's kind of hard to remember every detail.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided late in the game, we're like, Nick, you need to make this if you want to do your 50% at this weight class. You have to make it at Oswego. There's no, if you don't make it at Oswego, we don't have enough weigh-ins for you. It won't happen. And Nick, and Nick, again, I'll have you speak on this, but it was a tall order. And Nick, but that's why Nick was such a likable kid, is there was never, there's never pushback. It was like, all right, we'll do it. And if I recall, myself and Coach Sabellas met you in the Oswego gym at like 5 a.m, both days before weigh-ins, and to help you get that weight off. But go ahead, tell us about, that was tough. That was one of the more impressive acts I've seen.
Yeah. That was definitely really tough. I mean, that was the first time I've ever had to cut weight. I mean, I was heavyweight, never thought I'd have to. I was used to being like one of the big guys who just got to eat whatever, laugh at Joe for cutting weight, do one of those. But yeah, so I remember when I started, but beginning of the season, I had bulked up for football, so I had I was heavier. Then like throughout the season, I was like slowly going down. But I don't remember exactly how soon we were like, yeah, to wrestle 195 for divisionals, you need to start cutting weight. So I started doing that. Losing weight, wasn't taking it too seriously because I just didn't know. But by the time Oswego came around, like the day before, I was about 9 pounds over. So that's when like the cut started, and it sucked. It was not fun. I mean, the extra practices at the day before the tournament, I was dressed all in my like jackets, warm-ups, all that, sweating out. Maybe ate a little bit of salad and chicken for dinner, limited my water, just doing what I could to make weight. Then in the morning, meeting you guys in the gym, putting everything back on, getting on the bike, just going hard, waking up, going to weigh-ins, checking the weight, seeing I was still some pounds over, and then just, continuing to do sprints. Eventually went down to that little tiny gym, like down the stairwell. And that was, I remember that gym more the second day, because I was even more tired after a day of wrestling. I was in the wrestlebacks because I lost a match. So I had my varsity jacket on, sweatpants, couple sweatshirts, jackets. But yeah, it was pretty tough. But honestly, like looking back on it, like I'm proud that I did it. It's like something that not everyone could do, but I'm proud I made it through, proud I got to go wrestle. So it's a good story.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, because when me and Greg He wrestled well, but with me, especially considering how depleted he probably felt,
Yeah, we were like, it doesn't matter how you wrestle here.
just make
We were
weight.
telling him, we're saying you got to make the weight, and you're
But
gonna have great competition.
that's what we talked about in Greg's interview, where like I used to take pride in the fact that we would be, working out at 8:00 on a Friday night trying to get our weight down, and nobody else was willing to do that. And Nick's story is just as extreme, if not more extreme. And I'm sure when Nick he is an adult, but when he becomes more of an adult and he gets older and all these things happen, thinking about something like that, that's tough.
Yeah.
And of course there are going to be tough things that happen in life that are more emotionally tough maybe, but working and getting things done, and it's not going to get much harder than that, and that's something to look back at. It'd be like, I could do that, I could do this. And I think that's really cool that, I just want to get the point across. Nick didn't complain. I don't think any in those 2 days did he complain to us. I don't recall. I could tell he was tired or whatever, but I don't remember him saying, Coach, I can't do this. I don't think that came out of his mouth. I don't. And I think that will serve him well.
Yeah, no,
We didn't have to wake him up.
Yeah.
He was ready to go.
There's definitely a mindset to get into it. I definitely said, man, this effing sucks a couple times, maybe to like the other guys on the team who'd come down and check on me and be like, yeah, this sucks. But it was during sprints, like I wasn't going to stop. So
I think you smiled at me when I saw you in the morning. I think you may have done that because you're probably like, let me just smile at this guy and maybe he'll go a little easier.
Remember the fitness center, there was glass in front of it, and there was a thing over the top so we could look in and see how he was doing.
But it motivated me.
Well,
Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I'm a little sick in the head, but like watching Nick work out like that, I was fired up. I was like, this is awesome. Like he's killing it right now. And, it was that type of season for Nick where, I don't want to speak for him. Maybe he didn't reach his goals. Maybe he did. I think he was an all-section level guy. But he did great. And I feel like his season was very, like, just tough. Everything that happened that season was just tough. Like, it was like, we'll find a way. And we'll get into this, I guess, now, is you didn't have your best divisional tournament. You had a great season. You didn't have your best divisional tournament, and you ended up losing in the Conti semis to a kid that you were definitely better than. You had a bad match, kind of like Izzy in the blood round this year at sectionals. Bad match, right? It happens. It's not the end of the world. It just happened at a bad time, and
that was devastating.
It was it hurt.
That Nicky didn't go into sections to see.
That hurt me and Coach DeBella. That hurt bad. And
that was the one that we want. We're like,
really
he deserves to be here. This, that, the other thing.
But then we find out that there was one division that had 3 entries at 95 or something like that, and Nicky ended up getting a wild card. And it was like he was like back from the dead. It was awesome. It was awesome. We were so excited. And when I say this man took advantage of that opportunity, he took advantage of that opportunity. He wrestled unbelievable that day. Those 2 days, I believe, because it was the blood round was second day, I believe, right? Or was it all one day?
I
it was a snowstorm.
One day because of the
snowstorm.
Yeah, so it was all compressed into one day.
But for some background, I mean, Nick scrapped, and the guy that kept him from placing, Nick ended up being top 8 in the section, and which is an accomplishment. Think about that. There's 30-something big schools in Section 1. He was top 8. He lost to Innocent from East Ramapo, who the next season was a New York State finalist, and it was a dogfight. If I remember, Nicky, you were winning that match for a time.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I had him, but he got me on a good throw. He's a good wrestler.
Late throw.
What?
Was it late in the match to throw?
Yeah, I think it was like early third. I think he just caught me, got back points, and I just couldn't make it up from there. But,
yeah, it was the middle mat in the back gym at Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nate won his blood round match, I think, on the same mat.
But he was there. I remember he was on the other side. He was in the other gym and came running in, Nate. I think we were watching Andre.
There was a lot going on. We were pretty good then, so there's a lot of guys wrestling.
It was great.
But yeah, man. Like, so Nick, like, let's speak a little bit on this, and I'm kind of curious to hear. You were a big football guy, right? Mm-hmm. And football's great. Coach Kern's doing a great job now over there. Was he the coach when you were there, or was it Tribo?
No, Tim Sullivan. Was in between Tribo and Kearns. He was my coach for all 4 years.
Okay.
Really?
Great guy. Yep.
Tim Sullivan was 4 years there.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
it was like
he was my 4 years. But he also the year before I came. He was my brother's coach sophomore year, then my coach throughout senior year, and then Kearns took over the year after me.
Wow. So you never had Tribo?
I did not. No, I've heard stories about his toughness and just the way he was.
Yeah, no, Tribo was a great coach, well respected in the community, and
I like Tribo. I like Tribo even as a wrestler that didn't play football.
Yeah,
I you know,
When you
he
meet
wanted,
everybody in town, they all have high
he
respect for
wanted
you.
everybody to play football, but he was very good to me because he knew I worked hard, so he liked me. Like he would always, you know, and the first time I started coaching at Greeley, he actually came up to me. I don't know if I ever told you this, DeBells, but 2010, 2011 season, he came up to me and he saw how hard I was trying already. And he's like, you know, Anthony, this is a tough egg to crack. I said, and I looked at him like dead in the eyes and I said, I'll crack it. And that was our conversation and that was it. But, so what I wanted to ask you, Nick, though, is and like I said, I know you had a really good experience with football. How did you stay motivated maybe for wrestling, knowing that football was probably your predominant sport?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of the same. I stayed motivated for both of them the same. Like, I love both sports. I like football a little more. But just working hard with the team was always something that I loved the most. For both aspects, I was a big team guy more than individual. Like, I love hanging out with guys. I love working out with them. So it wasn't just trying to, like, motivate myself, because just the amount of time and effort I put into it from second grade, it's like there's no way for me to not give everything I had to this. There's no reason for me to not work hard. It just wouldn't make any sense to just go easy after I put all this time and effort into it. So.
And that's a great perspective, and I think we need a little bit more of that. You know, we've come a long way. We've had, I think Nick's year, that year when Nick lost in the blood run, was the year we came in fourth, which was probably our best sectional finish. But then, you know, 2 or 3 years later, we came in seventh in the state twice with Jacob, Aaron, and Matt, because we had some superstars there. But we need more. We don't need everybody, and that's why Nick's interview and like Bang Bang's interview to me are so important, because they were just as big as contributors to our team as Jacob, Matt, and Aaron. But just because they weren't superstars on the mat, they were good wrestlers and they cared about the team. You know, they cared about the idea of like, hey, let's get better together and let's work hard together and let's set a good example for the younger guys. And Nick always did that. You know, Nick wasn't a club wrestler, but I was never mad at him about it because he was always upfront about it. Like, he played other sports. He had other activities he was doing. It wasn't like he was sitting at home being lazy and not trying to be the best at something, right? If you're doing other things, you're doing other things, but there has to be some sort of commitment level to something. You know, and if you're not playing other sports and you're just wrestling, then you should be training pretty freaking hard, you know. So I don't know. I really was always impressed with Nick in that aspect. He always did a really good job. Coach, do you have like some memories of Nick when he was with us and how good he was with the team?
Yeah, I mean, Nick was always one thing. When it was him and Brock, 220 and 220 and 285 sometimes,
For
right?
some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember the other coach would always try, because Brock was known around the section as a real tough wrestler. You know, he was fifth in the state. So they would avoid Brock at all costs. And then they would run into Nick. So they would maneuver their –
That was more with Nadler. So they would even – because Nick was better, so they almost would fall into the trap because they didn't know Nick at the time. I remember this happening a lot. They would try to avoid Nadler because he was already all section, and they would run into Nick, and then Nick would beat their guy. That happened a lot the senior year because they would try. Nick was good, but Nick was coming along more, so they did try it with Brock, but they fell into a trap with Nadler because Nick was ready to go. So I remember that. I remember John Jay's Fishkill. Nick probably doesn't remember this. They were bouncing back and forth, and they put their better guy up against Nick, and Nick took him out. And
I remember that. But speaking back to coaches talking about Brock, one thing that always stood out to me that I remind you every time, Torts, is when Brock and I were practice partners, you came over and you're like, you know, it's like steel sharpening steel, except Nikki, you're not steel yet. You're more like hard plastic. Every time.
Did that hurt your feelings, Nick?
No, not at all. Because
Nick was very good.
Still, I wasn't up there yet, but just every time I think about it, makes me laugh.
Because I never would have meant to hurt your feelings.
No, of course not.
Because Nick's the man. You have to know your athlete. I feel like I think that's a joke that Nick would enjoy. Other people might be like, "Why do you call me hard plastic?" So I gotta watch what I say sometimes. But
Nicky was always good on the spot too. Like if the team was having a hard time or. You know, it was just got heavy, you know, like the situation was heavy. And Nicky would always come in there and just lighten it up. He would tell some silly joke, and he didn't say much. Nicky's a man of few words, really. But we'd have some heavy times, hard practices, and Nikki would just come in and say, "Hey, Nikki, tell us a joke," right?
We
Remember,
had dad jokes that were like ridiculous, but I would always find them hysterical.
Well,
Actually, Nick, can you tell one? Because I'm a dad now, so I could use it.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
Let's hear this.
All right, this one, I definitely told a lot of times. Why don't lions eat clowns? Because they taste funny. Stuff like that, yeah.
Remember, I put him on a spot at the dinner.
Yeah,
the freshman
dinner. Yep.
Yeah,
Who did?
I did. I put him on a spot. I said,
did.
Nikki. Yes, I did.
It was at that Italian restaurant. Yep, I remember.
I said, Nick. I said, Nikki, tell us a joke. He got up there, and I'm like, who know? He's a freshman. I mean, I shouldn't have done it to him, really. He came up there and he goes, "How do you have a party in outer space?" And everyone's like, I don't know. What's the answer, Nick?
You plan it.
Oh, yeah.
I've told that joke at least 100 times.
I'm gonna tell it to Luca today. He's 5 months old, but he probably won't get it. But
yeah, I don't think he will.
We'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get a gig
early.
But
another great thing about Nicky,
Coach. Go ahead.
Another great thing about Nick is the same thing that we have spoken about in almost every interview: how involved and how trusting his parents were with us.
Oh my gosh, yes.
My parents loved you guys. Yeah, they're so happy with Greeley wrestling. They're big fans. They still like going to watch and support it.
Well, your father always sends us emails constantly.
He actually, I don't know if Nicky, I don't know if you know this, DeBellis, because you must have known this because you were probably on the chain. But the first episode or second episode of this I sent out, nobody was really responding yet, and your dad was like one of the first people that responded, like keep them coming or something along those lines.
Yep.
And I was excited. I was like, oh, Mr. Phillips likes it. That's great. But we speak about, like you said, DeBellis, in every interview pretty much, that we are blessed in the sense that our parents have been unbelievable. Like the Phillips were so good. Both of them were so great. And it's around the same time as like everybody. Like we had so many good families that cared. And even now, we have damn trials and stuff too. We just have to keep it going. We got to keep it going because that helps us so much.
The Phillips never interfered. They never said you should do this or you should do that. They said more like, how can I help? One. And if they saw you struggling, like at Greeley Duels was like chaos some years, because it was just so much going on. And we always put more pressure, get more teams, get more duels, just trying to just pour it on. And they were always the calm, like, especially your mother.
Yep.
If I remember talking to her like I was like running all over the place, and she'd be like, "Mike, are you okay?"
She's
and
so sweet. Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I'm freaking out. Let's go."
Well, can I add this too, Coach? Is that people don't realize, and I hope people are really watching these. People don't realize what Coach DeBellis does. Also, like I have the luxury of literally coaching wrestling. Like I don't deal with any of that, like any of it. Coach DeBellis deals with a lot of it. And then the parents see Coach DeBellis dealing with all of this, and they try to take it off his hands so he could kind of be with me and coach and whatnot. And luckily for people like the Phillips, it happened enough where Coach DeBellis was able to enjoy coaching as well. I remember a couple of years ago when Coach said, you need to be co-head coaches. We need to do this. My thing was, one, I didn't need it because Coach DeBellis does such a great job that I think he deserves that title anyways. But two is I didn't want to be involved in any of that stuff. Like, I don't want, like, that's not, I want to coach wrestling, right? And that's what I love. But he still does all that stuff. And people don't realize how much Coach DeBellis sometimes does for the program. And I think people like the Phillips, did realize what Coach DeBellis does for the program. And, they were willing to help because he does so much,
Well, we over the years, though, people have been picking up all that stuff.
Well, yeah, but started kind of – well, I mean, our first class was great with the Wims and the Kleins and the Atlases. They were great. I feel like each class had like a figurehead, and the Phillips were kind of that in Nicky's class, and the Sassos were great. The Nadlers were great. Everybody was great, but the Phillips were unbelievable.
Yeah.
They were really, really
families
good.
like, Kirby, the Atlases.
There's just like generation jumps, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, all the families have been great. They would just pass down like what to do, like
it's still done.
Like the food after. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I remember like Wendy Ferrer was always there. She always knew what was going on. Yeah. She was the best.
I can't wait to get Wendy on here. She'll be on here. Can't wait.
That, dude.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, no. one of the great things for me about my parents in wrestling is that they would always help out, but they would just stay out of wrestling and leave that to you guys as coaches and to me, leaving it to me to do it. They didn't try to like get involved. They would ask questions, but they wouldn't like try to help out or anything because they didn't really know. So they left it to you guys who are basically professionals at this. Yeah. So
they cared so much. Like your dad in the stands, he never was the dad where it would be like, dude, be quiet. Like you're yelling crazy stuff at your kid. Let us coach. It was more, let's go, Nick. Let's go, Greeley. Let's go. Like he probably yelled, let's go, G all the time. Like he was the man. And it wasn't only Nick. Like, of course, he was maybe a little bit louder for Nick, but like he loved all the kids. He was very vocal for every kid that was wrestling, and it was a blast. He was always great. Always great. Loved it. Love the passion. I always love the passion. Now I'm curious. I have a couple more questions that I gotta get out, and then we can talk about whatever.
Can I just say one more thing?
Go ahead, Coach. Yeah.
There was one decision they made a long time ago that I didn't agree with.
Uh-oh.
Nikki, do you know what it is?
Not having Bo wrestle?
Yes. Why would Bo to wrestle? Bo was another great athlete. He played basketball. He was really great. And now he's serving our country. He's in the Air Force. Is that right, Nicholas?
He's in the Marines, but Marine pilot school.
Pilot school, yeah. So we thank him for his service, and
it's pretty darn smart.
He has our back.
You must be smart to be able to drive an airplane or fly an airplane.
You can drive it on the tarmac.
Yeah, there you go.
Once you get it in the air, you're flying.
You're not the only one with jokes. I was testing you guys. That's what that was all about, right there.
There you go.
Right, you got us.
But Nick, so I'm curious. Same question line that we've been pretty much asking everybody is, do you use, and it could be football too, because like I know you're a big football player, but I'd rather you speak just a little more on the wrestling aspect of it. Do you use some lessons you learned through the team and through the sport now that you're, out of high school, you're an adult? Like, how does it work?
I mean, the biggest takeaway was something that you would say all the time. It's not like really like a lesson or skill. It's just mental toughness. Just being like, what, I have to do this. I got to get through it. It may suck, but, I got to write this huge paper, do well on this big test. And it's just like, I got to sit down and grind through it. Don't complain. Just get it done. I think that's like my biggest wrestling takeaway was mental toughness.
I love it. And to me as a coach, I feel like, and Coach Bells, I don't know if you feel the same, but preaching that stuff it reminds me that I need to be like that too, right? So it's not, you lead from the top, you lead by example. And I feel like me and Coach DeBellis and our program's the type that when we say something, we mean it. And I hope that the kids feel that it's genuine and they, like Nikki says, like, hey, I remember this and I gotta be mentally tough. And that never was a problem with Nick Phillips. Always was tough. And I'm sure going forward, he's going to do some really cool stuff and he's going to grind some things out because that's life. And you're going to have to grind some things out and that's just what it is. And that's going to be really cool. I also want to know, this is a two-part question. I'd ask everybody the same thing too. What was your least favorite memory as a wrestler? It could be a loss. It could be the weight cut. And what was your most memorable favorite memory as a Greeley wrestler?
I think, probably my least favorite memory was when I lost at divisional senior year. I was pretty messed up. That was the most upset I've ever been at any loss in any sporting event. Because, I thought my season was over and I did not accomplish what I wanted to. Not at all. But, getting that second chance was great. So that definitely lessened it.
Do you remember the phone call?
I actually don't. I remember because
I was fired up.
I remember I was still going to practice and I was hearing we knew that there's a potential. So I just kind of set my mind, was like, I'm going to get the call. I'm going to get into it. So I've just got to keep working.
It wasn't even close because it was on a point system and you had more points than everybody. But a lot of coaches, they forget to put, they didn't even look.
We slid on a couple before. Last year, Izzy should not have gotten into sectionals.
Right. It was Tappan Z.
Yeah, they slept. They slept.
And they almost did it again.
And we're so on top of it. We right away we're like, can we get this person in? Let's figure it. I probably called Jamie 3 times a night. He's probably like, this freaking guy again. Jeez Louise. Okay, so your favorite moment. What was your favorite moment?
I'll speak to my favorite win. It was senior year. It was at the County Classics. I was wrestling the 1 seed from Sleepy Hollow. And it was a tough match. He was a good wrestler. But from the start of it, I just had him. I came out firing, came out strong, and by the third round, I broke him. Like, that's something you always speak to. Like, you got to break your opponent in the third round, and then I pinned him, and it was great. It was, that was one of my favorite matches. That was one of my favorite wins of all time. It just
That was awesome.
it was a really good senior moment.
I remember that too.
Yeah,
that
was I was pretty pumped up about
that. That was on the middle mat. The middle mat.
Yep, I remember that. He broke him. He absolutely broke him. And that might be my favorite thing as a coach, watching one of our kids break another kid. And it's not the fact that the kid is broken and I enjoy watching a high school kid suffer. It's more the fact that our kid just out-toughed this person, and they have that mindset. And it's fun to watch that, like when it's unraveling for that guy, and our kid is so focused and into it. And Nikki, we probably said it before, but it's a great feeling to break somebody, isn't it?
Yeah. There's another Torts saying, one of the many is like, take him out to the deep water where like he doesn't want to go. Like, that just stuck with me because like, you just push him until you can make it and he can. And that's what that match felt like to me. So you
don't have to edit it. I think it's take him to the deep water and drown him. But, that's fine. Hey, it is what it is. But yeah, that was great. That match was great. I remember that. It's so funny that I remember Nick's career. I remember him doing well at sectionals. I remember him, like the John Jay match I remember. But with so many kids in the last 10 years, it's hard to remember specific matches. It's hard, but when you bring them up, and I've noticed this in almost every interview, when somebody brings one of these matches up, I see the match in front of me again. Like, I literally am seeing this Sleepy Hollow match in front of my face right now. And it's pretty interesting how that happens, Mm-hmm. It shows that they were really good memories because they're still in there. It just has to get brought to the front sometimes, But yeah, that was a great match. For me, your run at sectionals was probably one of my most fun moments. I mean, I wish you beat that last kid, but you wrestled tough. You just got caught into a throw. And I think having such a negative event happen the weekend before, to be able to bounce back and put that good of a performance up shows what type of person you are. And I was very proud when you were running through the wrestlebacks and wrestling. I'm like, man, Nikki is tough. Nikki is tough. And when you had Innocent on the ropes, I was like, this kid's going to friggin' place. This kid's going to do it. And it happens. And I, like I said before about the Izzy interview and Izzy's career, so proud.
I'm going to cut you off for a sec. It's starting to rain outside, so I'm going to move inside real quick.
Nice shirt, Nikki.
Thank you.
There you go.
I think he's such a good guy.
Some of our youth. I remember the one of the first youth pictures. Do you remember that picture, Nick?
Oh, yeah. Well, was that the team picture where I had the huge chair? I was standing kind of like a weird stand.
I wish I had that. We invited Marino, but I don't think we invited him too late.
I don't know if you guys noticed me rudely texting. I was texting him back because he's driving right now. He was going to try to get on this one, but he said he'll get on tomorrow for Mitchell. But I shouldn't email him, like you said. I should probably text him instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great, Nick. Your heart and your toughness in that tournament to me. And like I said, with Izzy, she lost, you lost. There's been plenty of kids, and everybody's, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way. Kids are kids, right? I don't dislike kids, and I don't it is what it is. But there's been plenty of matches in my 10 years of coaching where I know a kid could have gave more output. And I know that wasn't the best version of themselves. And I know that they left something out there. Very similar with Izzy, both of you lost in the blood round. I didn't feel that when you guys lost those matches. I felt more that we could have won those matches. We wrestle as hard as we can, and sometimes things happen, and we have to deal with it. And I feel like that needs to be said because you showed a ton of heart and you wrestled your butt off,
Yeah, no, sectionals, I mean, senior year, I didn't accomplish the goals I wanted to. Like, my goal was to be top, or one of the top wrestlers in the section, be all section, and I didn't accomplish that. But I don't have any regrets because I gave it my all. I wrestled hard many times. I had a great match against, I think, the third or second place guy from Mount Vernon, and Innocent again. But yeah, it just didn't happen. I wouldn't say they're definitely better wrestlers than me. They wrestled better matches, but that's all out there. So no regrets on my end. Wasn't satisfied with how it ended, but I'd say I am, not satisfied, but I'm content with what happened, knowing I gave it to my all.
But that's what I say all the time, and Coach Sabella says as well, is look, you could look at and wrestling ends. We said that in a bunch of interviews. Wrestling ends eventually. Football ends eventually. All these sports end eventually. You go on with your life. You're going to be able to look yourself in the mirror for the rest of your life and know. You think about the story about Oswego, how you didn't fold at all. You made the weight. You think about how you broke the guy at county finals and you showed so much heart. You had no wins in youth wrestling, but you decided to come through high school and you ended up being a top 8 guy in the section and a leader on the team. I mean, how can you not look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm tough. I did it. And I think it's a problem. And it's not for me a problem. I think some other kids don't understand, maybe because they're too young, too immature, whatever it may be, that if you're not giving your all, why do it? Why? Especially a sport like wrestling. When somebody's bashed your face into the mat, like it's not like we're playing like table tennis here. It's like give it your all. So I don't care if you win or lose. Like Jacob Ferreira losing the state finals was one of my most proud moments as a coach because how he handled it and the man he became in that moment. Right. That at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Right. Because like we said, wrestling ends, and I think Nick Phillips is a perfect example of somebody that grew into the type of person we wanted him to grow into. All section would have been great. I wouldn't trade in a 5th place in the section for you being a kid that didn't work as hard as you do. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
D, D, with Nick Phillips, what made you like Nick Phillips so much? Because I could think of like a million things off the top of my head, but what made you like this guy so much?
He just came to practice with a positive attitude every single day. He never questioned anything really, but he was a thinker. He wasn't just out there going through the motions. He was thinking about what he was doing. He was improving every day. He was a positive member of the team, and he just made life better for everybody around him. So, I mean, he's just a positive force. He's a positive force in the world, and he's going to do great things.
I don't want to hurt my
I don't think it's wrestling. I think it's Nick. I think the same thing goes for Bill Swartfager, John Morehouse, all these guys that we say, well, what did wrestling make you who you are, or did you just fit the mold? I think Nicky, which is a great kid, and wrestling has benefited from him being involved.
See, I don't want to hurt my street cred at all because in the wrestling, the harsh gritty world, I tend to be I don't know what you would call me, Nick, something. And but Nick, the big thing for me with Nick is Nick would almost always come into practice smiling, even if it was the worst. Like we were going, it was right after Oswego was freezing out. We were in practice, the mats were cold. Like Nick had a smile on his face, and that could be said by the Nick and the Izzy and Bing Bang, all these guys that maybe didn't achieve exactly what they wanted to do as a wrestler, but still had good careers. That positive, like you said, Coach, that positive outlook, was unbelievable. It made it easier for us. It made me come into practice and not feel negative. If he was so positive, how can I be so negative? I think that's a real thing. So I don't know if that's going to hurt my street cred more or my Christmas shirt I'm wearing right now, but one of the two is going to really bring me down here. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, Nick, we're going to probably wrap this up in a little while. Do you have anything that you want to add? We'll give you the last. Coach, you have anything else?
No. Nicky, you can wrap it up with whatever you want to wrap this sucker up with.
Well, I'll just speak on the team aspect because, I mean, the teams just throughout the years have been great. I mean, just great. Like, all my drill partners were the best. Like, Stephen McDonald, Ned, Josh McMillan, Brock, like, wrestling all those guys was just, the best. And just the team bonding on the bus to tournaments or, like, on the bus to a dual meet. It's always so great. So that was, like, also one of my biggest takeaways from wrestling, just, like, the team aspect. Because those guys are always the best. So.
Do you stay in contact with them?
Not all, like, a decent amount. I mean, Brock's one of my brother's closest friends, and Steve and Joe are still some of my closest friends. But, if I see, like, someone who I wrestled with, I'll always go and talk to them. I mean, yeah, definitely. So I always love visiting practices when I'm back in college on breaks. I love saying hi.
I got to reach out to Nader, get him on here. We had Joe and Ann on here the other day, and the Sassos are still the Sassos. Yeah. They did a great job, but Joe went on a rant about bathing dogs or something. I don't know what he
Yep, That's Joe.
So it was great. And Ant was just like, I don't know. So it was great. But Anthony Sasso, like, I'll tell you, did a great job coaching this year. He really came into himself. So
I can see him being a good coach. With
he was good. He really was. He really was. And Joe seems to be like maybe getting that wrestling coaching bug a little bit as well. So we'll see where that takes him. But Nick, we really appreciate the time, man. I hope you and your family stay well. Like you said, your parents come to matches, and you came to one match. Were you at Portchester? Maybe you were at a match.
Portchester, yeah.
Let's keep it going. Get to as many matches or practices that you can get to, and you're more than welcome always. As that positive energy, bring that back into the room. So thanks, Nick. We appreciate it. I'm gonna stop recording, but hang on for a second.
Sounds good.